Yoga gives us the opportunity to explore and find our true nature. Sometimes we call this finding the midline, the mudra. In this practice, we'll be drawn to the midline, the physical midline in each pose, in order to discover the fullness of ourselves in the practice. You may wish to use blocks and a strap for the practice. We begin by standing in Tadasana, mountain pose. Look down to ensure that your feet are parallel. You've got a nice spread to your toes, so your foundation is quite firm. And as you draw from the feet all the way to the pelvis, have this feeling of engaging the legs in such a way that you're drawing inward to that midline, that space equidistance between your feet. Imagine that that line draws up and from the pubic bone to the navel, to the sternum, to the nose, to the crown of the head. You're drawing in to that midline. You feel so engaged. Close your eyes for a moment. Enjoy the breath. Draw in through the nose and out through the nose. Soften your facial muscles, but continue the physical engagement of drawing into the midline. As you stand tall, you root down from the pelvis to the earth and up from the pelvis to the crown of the head to find a feeling of inner strength, of freedom. With your eyes bright, now step to the front of your mat. Once again, find Tadasana with a strong foundation rooted into the earth, with a brightness to your gaze. Inhale, take your arms up, reach them back, reach your gaze back. Exhale, come down to the earth. Step your right foot back. Bring your back knee down. Draw your heart forward. Now the midline of your stance, since your feet are not parallel on the same lineup, the midline is the midline of your mat. So you're drawing into that midline. And from that, you can just go deeper into your lunge. Step back to downward facing dog. Once again, the feet are parallel. You pull into that midline. Look at your hands. Pull the hands in toward each other to get a nice engagement in the shoulders. From here, with the feet pulling into the midline, the hands pulling into the midline, come to a plank position. Once again, engage. Pull into that midline. Draw yourself all the way to the earth. On the earth, draw your heart forward. Exhale, come back through all fours position to downward facing dog. Step your right foot right between your hands. Bring your back knee down. Same thing. Pull into that midline. Once you have the engagement, let your pelvis just soften down toward the earth as your heart gazes its strength forward. Step the back foot forward. Place both hands to the low back. Rise up. Reach up to the sky and slightly back. Full engagement in the legs and the arms. Exhale, come to the earth. Step your left leg back. Bring your left knee down. Pull in toward the midline so you can go deeper in your actions. Engage more fully in the practice. Step back to downward facing dog. Inhale, come to a plank position. Exhale, lower yourself to the mat. Inhale, draw your heart forward. Exhale, through all fours position to downward facing dog. And pause. Note the sound, the fullness of the in-breath, the length of your out-breath, and the pause between the in-breath and the out-breath. The pause after the out-breath and before the in-breath. Look forward, walk your way to the front of the mat. Place your hands to the low back, rise up. Come to a wide stance. In this wide stance, you're pulling into the midline. So when we were facing the front of the mat, the midline was the longitudinal direction of the mat. As we step wide, we have a different midline. We still have the same fullness of engagement as you draw in from the feet toward that midline. Turn your right toes out. Inhale, lift your arms up. Exhale, drop into a strong warrior two pose. As you keep the back leg strong, still pulling into the midline, you can soften even more to come to the fullest expression of your pose. Root down through the back foot to inhale and rise up and release your hands. Come to the opposite side as you turn the left foot and look at your lineup. Pull into the midline first. Bend your knee. Inhale, lift your arms up with full engagement in the legs, in the arms, and tone the muscles of the arms through a nice spread to the fingers as you just soften and go deeper into your expression of the pose. Root down to inhale and rise up. Exhale, release your hands. Step your feet to Tadasana again. As you pause in Tadasana, engage fully. Find the midline. Even with your eyes closed, as you draw in, you feel the upper inner thighs engaged nicely. As you root down from the pelvis to the earth, you feel this freedom of expression and fullness from the pelvis to the crown of the head. Now, with your eyes bright, step to the front of the mat. Once again, the midline will be the longitudinal direction. As you step your right foot forward, the left foot back, you pull in, you gather strength in the legs toward that midline. Place the hands to your low back. Look to the sky. And it's slightly a balance pose here as you keep pulling into the midline, keep the strength of the back leg, draw it yourself down. Keep the back foot rooted down as you soften even more fully. Breathe in and you'll find yourself kind of bobbing up, lifting slightly away from the floor as you breathe out. You can go slightly deeper. Root down through the back leg to inhale, rise up, release your hands, and step your back foot forward. Take your right foot back to come to Parsvottanasana again. Place your hands to your low back, hug your elbows in, hug the midline with your legs. With this great freedom in the upper chest, you lean back, putting more weight on your back heel, emphasizing strength in the back leg. Now draw more weight toward the front leg as you bow forward. Just pulse with the breath in such a way that the exhale finds you going deeper into the pose. The inhale has you contract slightly to lift up. The exhale has you drawing deeper. Root down through the back foot to inhale. Lift yourself up out of the pose. Release your hands. Step your back foot forward. And if you'd like to balance stepping off the mat so you have a really solid foundation, do so. The physical instruction of hugging the midline is especially critical in balance poses. So as you pause in Tadasana, hugging the midline, notice how that engagement is so critical when you take all your weight to one foot. So just lean to the right, and maybe you can just keep your left toes tapping. But notice how you still have to engage so fully this notion of hugging the midline. Release your left foot. Draw in as you take your weight off your right foot. Release. As you take your weight to the right foot again, see about lifting the left leg up in order to take your left hand to the shin or the top of the foot or the ankle. As you stay rooted into the pose, you give yourself a nice thigh stretch. And if you'd like to just tap the wall or a chair beside you to stay balanced, feel free. In this practice, we're mostly working on engaging the legs and the arms in a way that we can hug the midline to find that strength. And just by physically doing so, we find that in our lives, we can carry that forward as a way to direct us to our true nature. You can release your foot down and just pause on 2 feet in Tadasana. Have a nice evenness to your breath, nice softness. As you take your weight to the left foot, hug in, stay balanced as you hug the midline and lift up your right foot. And just find a way to hold onto the foot so that you get this nice elongation to the front side of the leg. Just pause here. Keep a nice steadiness to the breath. Nice engagement to the legs. You might find that just by pushing the shin or the foot into your hand, you get so much fullness, so much engagement. You can release your foot and come to Tadasana again. Look down at your feet and make sure you've got a nice spread to the feet, a spread to the fingers with the palms facing forward. Close your eyes for a moment. As we started in Tadasana, we just brought our awareness to this engagement that required us to physically draw into the midline of our stance. And at this centering action enables us to come to that place of our true nature. We feel confident. We feel overall sense of well-being in that place. With your eyes bright, let's come through Tadasana to Malasana. For some of us, stepping a little bit wider to come to a squat makes a lot of sense. So as you bend your knees to draw your pelvis down, you might even be able to take your hands in a prayer position. And if this isn't working for you, come to sit with your feet forward. Or if you can stay in Malasana for a few more breaths, just enjoy this nice engagement from the legs, pulling into the midline, from the hands in this prayer position, pulling into the midline. And as you're ready, you can draw yourself to the mat. We were stretching the top of the thigh in our standing position. Let's extend the right foot forward and get continue a nice stretch to the top of the thigh. For some of us, we might feel a little bit lopsided, as if all the weight is to one side of the pelvis. So see if you can even that out. If not, you might want to just slide a washcloth or a hand towel under one side. If you can balance yourself nicely, just reach for your toes. For some of us, using the strap really makes a nice difference in this pose because we can keep our spine elongated. So the legs are pulling into that imaginary midline, even with one leg bent and one leg straight. As you draw the elbows wide, the heart reaches forward. The legs stay active. You might be able to find yourself just drawing a little bit closer to the extended leg rather than dropping your nose to your knee, which rounds the upper back. See if you can keep your chin lifted, the heart reaching toward the toe tips. Inhale and lift yourself out of the pose. Let's come to the other side with the left leg straight. Bend your right knee. On this side, I feel slightly off balance, like all my weight is sinking into the straight leg side. I'm going to use a little bit of a wedge here under my sit bone, and that little lift, it's like a shim that carpenters use. That little amount of lift on the left side is helping to balance the action. When we draw into the midline with our legs, we want to do it with that balanced action. You can grab your strap again, reach it to the base of the toes, hug the midline, get a nice elongation in the spine, draw your heart forward, and just pause here. And as you do, just allow yourself to come slightly deeper in the pose. Let the breath help to lead you to that place. Just soften the outer body, while the inner body, the muscles are fully engaged. You're still drawing to the midline, keeping a nice elongated spine. Inhale and lift yourself up to come out of the pose. We've got nice elongation of the muscles in the front side of the leg, so let's come to a kneeling pose to benefit from the stretches of the poses that we've done. In your kneeling posture, if your knees feel like they need a little bit more support, just double fold your mat for a little bit more cushioning. Reach back with your left hand and take your right arm up and over. Inhale, rise up. Take your right hand to your heel. Lift your left arm up and over. Rise up. Now remember that engagement of hugging in to the midline with the legs. As you reach your left arm back, take your right arm up and back. You're hugging the midline with strength to go deeper into the pose. Inhale, rise up, reach back toward the right heel. So you take your left arm up. You're hugging the midline with the legs, with a nice tone in the muscles of the arm, nice spread to the fingers. Inhale, rise up. One more time, reach back to the left heel. Take your right arm up and back. Inhale, rise up. Reach your right arm back, left arm up and over, and rise up. Come to lie on your back with your knees bent. If you've got blocks and you'd like to use them for your bridge pose, to have a supported bridge pose, lift your pelvis up and take the blocks underneath the sacrum. Take the blocks to support the sacrum and continue this nice opening of the front side of the body. If you don't have blocks, no worries, you can come to the bridge pose without it. Allow a nice fullness of the front side of the body and engage your legs fully. So even if you're supported or not, the legs stay engaged. They're pulling into the midline. Now bend your arms at the elbows, press your elbows down, and with the arms, have the elbows hug into the midline and notice how the heart lifts so fully. If you're on blocks, lift up off the blocks, pull into the midline with the legs, with the elbows, get this nice fullness in the area of the heart. You can slide your blocks out of the way if you are using them. Stay in this nice, fully supported bridge pose with all the preparations that we did to elongate from the pelvis to the knees. Just notice how that gives you so much freedom in the upper chest. You can slowly release your pelvis to the earth. Draw your knees toward your chest and hold on to the knees. With your palms right at the knees, engage your legs. You're still pulling into the midline, even without rooting the feet. You're able to engage the legs nicely. Just move side to side very slowly. As you're drawing the knees away from your heart, notice how you start to feel an engagement of the lumbar spine muscles. Just move side to side really slowly. Keep that engagement, keep that tone. And as you come back to the center point, allow your feet to draw to the mat, straighten your legs. Let your arms draw to your side. And once again, we hug the midline with engagement before allowing ourselves to release fully. Draw your attention to your breath. Have softness in your facial muscles. You have a nice, steady, and even in-breath through the nose. And out-breath through the nose. You pause with gratitude to the practice. With that understanding that the practice brings you to your own true nature. You rest in the knowledge of your true nature. You feel the ease, the assurance that the practice gives you. You breathe in deep and out long. You breathe in deep and notice the pause before the out breath. That middle point, the mudja. Now the pause after the out breath. That middle point between the in-breath and the out-breath, and the out-breath and the in-breath, is that place of ease. that place where you discover and rediscover your true self. That place of reassurance. In your own time, you can slowly make your way back to a seated position. And in that seated position, pause. Reflect on the great good fortune to come back, to reacquaint yourself with your truest self through the yoga practice. With great gratitude to the teachings that yoga bring to us, we bow. Namaste.